Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special segment of the Soup of the Day podcast where we invite missionaries to come in and share their story. And so I've got the Wortz family with us today, Phil and Yariana, who are going to Paraguay.
Yes.
So welcome to the Soup of the Day podcast. And as a former missionary, I just want to say I love missionaries.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I get to do as a superintendent is the missions director. And so we love missionaries in Georgia. Georgia is a great missions district. Last year, $12.5 million to missions across the district. And so
Awesome.
Our little engine that could, we do a great job. We have wonderful churches who love missions and missionaries. And so welcome today. And I wanted to just ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself. And then we're going to jump in about what God is wanting to do through your ministry there in Paraguay.
Well, thank you for having us, Pastor John. We are excited to share this story. We've been youth and children's pastors in Lincolnton, Georgia for the last 7.5 years. We have 5 kids, 2 boys and 3 girls, ranging from 20 down to 6.
Wow.
So we have a
Full
big
house.
family, full house.
Yeah.
And a lot going on all the time with the kids. And so, and we're called to be, God called us at different stages, called us to become missionaries. And it's been a amazing journey, just being, trusting God for what he's going to do.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. And I'm familiar with your story because we've sat and we kind of talked about it, but you felt called and you felt called, but sort of at different times. And of course, God lines everything up in perfect order. And so here we are. And you mentioned to me earlier that you felt like God was calling you to Paraguay. So tell us why the nation of Paraguay?
I'll let her.
Well, we could start off with his story because his story went a different direction. And then all of a sudden, my story kind of met up with his. So take it away.
So I felt the call to missions about 4 years ago at National Youth Convention. Eric Hoffman, the National Speedlight Director, said during the mission service tonight, 4 youth pastors are going to answer the call to missions. And immediately my spirit leapt. I knew it was for me. But Jody was at our Airbnb sick that night, and so she wasn't there to receive that same call that I felt. And so I looked at my students and I said, hey, it was before altar call, and I was like, hey, you guys are hungry, right? And we jetted out of there because I was not going down the altar without her. And I may not be the smartest person in the room, but I knew I was not going to answer that call without her.
Of course.
So, and then I just kind of began to pester, and I actually thought we were going to be called to Europe. I grew up as an Army brat, and I lived in Germany as a kid. I've always had a heart to go back to Germany. And so I thought that's where God was going to take us. And God didn't speak to her until a few years later. And then I'll let her share her part of the story.
So my first missions trip was on our MAPS team, and we built a church, and I loved it. I had fun. It was great communicating with all the people. Came home. Philip was all like, are you ready to go into missions? No. No, I'm not. So the following year, during the youth AIM trip, actually this past year in Colombia with the Jordans, 2 days into it, God literally had to take me away from all the noise, all the hustle and bustle with all the kids, our job there in Lincolnton, and my business. And God took me away from all that. And he said it was time. And I'm just like, okay, well, it's time. And I had called Philip at kids camp, and I told him, hon, it's time. And he's like, wait, time for what? And I'm like, it's time for us to go into missions. And then a few days after that, God had said Paraguay. And I'm going, I'm not going to tell him Paraguay because he wants to go to Germany.
So when she finally did tell me, months later, actually, she told me God called us to Paraguay, or God gave her Paraguay specifically. I had to Google it because I didn't know where Paraguay was on the map. I knew it was in Latin America, Caribbean, somewhere. So I Googled it. And as I found it on the map, I started reading about the country. And one of the first things I find is Paraguay has over 300,000 German-speaking Paraguayans. Many of them have lived there since the 30s and 40s. A lot of them left for religious reasons and things like that. Mennonites and Amish people, but they have a large German-speaking community in Paraguay. And I was like, okay, God, obviously you're going to do something bigger than I could even hope or imagine. So
Incredible.
Oh.
And so it took you a little while to kind of get on the same page. And you mentioned being in Colombia there on the AIM trip, doing ministry and whatnot. And by the way, shout out to Ryan and Caitlin Jordan, some of our favorite missionaries,
Yes.
Georgia missionaries.
Yes.
And I still apologize to Ryan to this day for bringing 132 people on an AIM trip. I didn't realize you're not supposed to do that. I'm just like 132 people. Come on, let's go, And of course they handled it flawlessly because they are amazing missionaries. And that I can see how God would speak to you on that. But you just felt, a stirring. It's like, hey, now's the time. And God's timing is always perfect, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And so you guys are ready to go, and you have a heart for Paraguay. Now you mentioned, the German speaking, but what do you feel like God's wanting you to do there?
So I really feel like God is calling us to work with the emerging generation, the youth and kids in Asuncion, where we will be for our first term, which is the capital. And we're going to be working along with the church planning team, brand new church planning team in the country. All of the former missionaries have retired, and this is a brand new team that's coming along.
Okay.
And we're going to be planting churches, and we feel called to work with the youth and children of these church plants.
Wonderful.
We've talked about a lot of different ideas and opportunities, even to the point of like maybe starting a national fine arts for the country of Paraguay. It'd be the first, I think, in LAC for sure. I don't know if it would be the first in the world, but national fine arts program. I'm all for that. I love fine art.
Fun. That is fun.
So
I love that. So going down there, a church planning team, you guys are going to get settled in and start working with youth and kids.
yes.
And I know that both of you have a long history of doing that type of ministry. And so it just seems like a natural segue onto the mission field going down there. But now I'll tell you, moving and living overseas is a big deal. And so I know that there's a little bit of maybe some anxiety of moving over there and whatnot. But I think you're settling in pretty well. Are you going to have to do a language tour while you're there, or term rather?
Yes. Our first year will be in Cincel in Costa Rica, learning Spanish.
Okay.
And then once we get to Paraguay, we'll have to learn Guarani, which is their native tongue, which is a national language. It's the only country in Central or South America that has two national languages.
Interesting.
And so we will have to learn Guarani, a native
Double language school.
Yes.
Okay.
They love
So,
speaking.
how's your Spanish now?
tongue. Very little.
Yeah. No bueno, huh?
No bueno.
All right. All right. What about yours?
Unfortunately, I would have to unlearn all my Spanglish terms and relearn for Spanish, which I'm okay with. I am super thankful, and I'm excited to do this. So.
Yeah. And, leaning in and being able to speak the language is so absolutely essential because it's going to open doors for you there. And I know, and again, people who are watching don't know of our personal relationship. I've known you guys for years, and so I understand your heart for the lost. Yeah. But going to another country, Paraguay, and doing ministry and working with youth and kids, ultimately the goal is to win people to Jesus.
Absolutely. One of the things I think that touched me was when we were at missionary training this summer, they talked about the churches in Latin America, Caribbean. And Paraguay does have a National Assemblies of God church, but it's a very, very conservative church. So if teenagers do something like get a tattoo or a piercing, things that they consider wrong, they get put outside of the church. And so then you're dealing with people who are hurt from the church because they love Jesus, but they're not allowed in the church anymore. And so I have a heart for those I've always had a heart for those kids who seem set aside. And that's what we did a lot in Lincolnton, was just trying to reach kids whose, their parents are a mess and their families are a mess. And we know that Jesus can work his way through all that mess and reach them and show him his love and show them his love and grace and mercy upon their lives. And they don't have to be like their parents. They don't have to be like what their family says they have to be. And God has a bigger plan for them. So
that's incredible. That's incredible. I love it. Yes, and some of the older established churches do have sort of a legalistic slant to them. And so you guys are going in there and planting brand new churches.
Yes.
With that church planting team. That is incredible. And so you just got approved and you went to training this past summer. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so you're sort of brand new into your itineration. And I know itineration is grueling. It is not the best or easiest thing for people to do. I know you've been warned about that. I know I talked to you about it. I said, man, just be prepared. But you know what I really love about the Georgia district is we are a missions district.
We are.
Yes.
And we are a missions district, and we do very well with our missionaries. And so as you're getting started and you're starting to book your calendar, we want people to jump on board. And so how would they go about doing that?
Well, we have a Facebook page that we can that we connect people to. That has we normally post our calendar on there. I can send calendars out to all of our different pastors. I have sent a bunch of emails out that I'll be following up on soon to contact pastors, and we are in the process of booking. We've got a few open dates in October and November, but December and into the beginning of the year is where we're really looking to book churches, because as of right now, that's pretty much wide open, and we have a lot of availability. And we just, however we can come and serve your church is our heart, whether it be to come and preach, come and do a window, come help with kids service or youth. We have experience in those areas, and we would love just to connect to your church and to share the story of God, what God has called us to do, and maybe inspire new missionaries along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we want them to offer those windows, just kind of open it up for you and give you an opportunity and take advantage of everything that we have. So percentage-wise, I think you guys are still in single-digit percentages on fundraising.
We are actually over 10% finally.
Yes.
Come on, man. All right. Just a couple months into this thing, you're already over 10%.
Yes. God, I actually broke it down, our budget, into eighths, because it's easier to calculate. It's a big budget with a large family. 3 of our kids are going over. Okay. And so it's a large budget, but we've reached over $1,200, which would be our first eighth of our budget. And God's been faithful, and we've had the opportunity to be in a lot of great Georgia churches, and there's so many more that we want to get into and spend time with the pastors and get to know them and know their congregations.
I love that. I love that. And man, we are praying for you. I know that our churches are going to be reaching out to you, and we're going to ask them to put the banner at the bottom for them to be able to contact you, email, cell phones, and whatnot. Now, you're coming out of a great missions church there in Lincolnton. That is a fantastic congregation, and I know you got a lot of support from them. But we want to see God open more doors for you, get you fully funded, and get you onto the mission field. So where on the calendar do you even have a date that you're looking at that possibly being able to head to the field?
Well, we have 2 dates.
Okay.
Our kids are aiming for May, because if we go during May to language school, they get to miss the Georgia milestones.
Oh, my. Okay.
So my kids are aiming for May, but we are ultimately aiming by September.
With Sincel, we have only 3 dates of the year that we can go, because they work in trimesters. So it's either January, May, or September. And we can't go, like if we get our budget in June, we still have to wait till September, till the next trimester starts. Okay. So we're aiming, I think, for May, really. And God can do it. We know God can, and He's going to bring the right people around. Yes, He can. And if not, September is God's timing, and we're open to that as well.
Well, we want to see you get there in May. It really get in. Yes, not just for the kids to miss the milestone exams, but to really get you guys there and get settled in, because again, time is of the essence. We know that Jesus is coming back.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so if we know that Jesus is coming back and there are lost people that need to hear the gospel before then, we need to get you to the field as quickly as we can, because time is of the essence. And so I'm going to pray that May is the date. And if not, we'll try to get you there in September. But I know your heart for missions. We're hearing it there. We want to see that nation come to know Jesus. Right. Yeah. And even if there is a national established church, I'll tell you this, there are so many communities and we hear, I guess because I'm the missions director, I get to hear the wonderful testimonies coming from our field missionaries about what God is doing in South America, Central America, that we're hearing these incredible testimonies because people are hungry. Right? They really are hungry. They're hungry for a true gospel to be preached to them, not a religion, but the gospel. And they're really hungry for this. They're hungry for Jesus to make a change in their lives. And we want to see you get there so that you can get trained and get into planting those churches and winning those youth and kids to Jesus. So we're going to pray for you. We're going to believe that God's going to open the doors for you. And so pastors, if you're watching, make sure that you figure out on your ministry calendar, because I already know it's budget season. So we're looking, next year, wanting to get them out. But go ahead and budget missionaries now and go ahead and get them on your calendar and get them in to do a window or to do a service for you. Come and bless your people and let them cast vision for Paraguay. And we're going to believe that God's going to give you every lost soul in that country for him.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right.
Amen.
So thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. Love everything that God is doing through our missions programs and our churches. And we're believing we're going to get this family to Paraguay quickly. Y'all have a great day.